All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's webinar. We'll let folks make their way in. Looks like we got already got some folks coming in. That's good. We assume that you're all parents of seniors, since this topic is about how to appeal financial aid offers and get more money potentially. So we normally would ask, ask the parents coming in, what year is your student? But we assume you're all 26s. So instead, why don't we ask, where's everyone located and what kinds of schools is your student thinking of attending? What kinds of schools are you considering appealing? All right, looks like we got someone, just drop them in the chat if you would. We got Arizona, Georgia. Hey, I'm in Georgia. All right. I'm in Savannah right now, so it was nice and sunny today. That was good. All right. Texas, Virginia, New Jersey, Illinois. All right. All of Florida. Okay. Very good. Very good. Feel free to drop in any schools that you're wondering about in terms of maybe doing appeals. Aloha.
All right.
St. John's, Purdue, UGA. All right. All right. Arizona State, Indiana Rose Holman, Hawaii. I've always wondered about that. It must be awesome to go to college in Hawaii.
Sounds dangerous to me.
I know do you get any studying done? Like I'd be surfing the whole fishing or something the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. Surf, masters in surf studies or something.
That sounds amazing, actually. All right, friends. Very good. All right. Looks like we got folks from all over the place, from East Coast to Hawaii. Very cool. All time zones. Awesome. Okay, so just a few housekeeping rules, and we're going to jump right in. Tonight we are going to we're going to go over kind of a high level view of things to think about with regard to the process of appeals. Whether you should appeal, how do you appeal, when do you appeal, who should appeal, those kinds of big questions. But it's going to be just general information, high level view. We're going to go about 45 minutes probably. So if you have questions, because we're just going to be making generalizations, because every family is different, right? Every situation is different. Every school is different. If you have questions, drop them in the Q&A. Okay, drop them in the Q&A, not the chat. If you drop them in the chat, we'll get lost in the chat. Well, so if you put them in the Q&A, that's what we're going to be monitoring. So if you have questions, you put them in the Q&A. In addition, if you have questions or you have some, personal circumstances or special circumstances, don't put that stuff in there, right? Don't put confidential stuff in the Q&A for sure. At the end of the webinar tonight, we are going to give you the opportunity to book a free 15-minute consultation with us. And so you can get your questions answered in that 15-minute consultation as well. So you got two ways to get questions answered tonight. One is drop stuff in the Q&A, and we'll try to keep up on that as best we can. And then second is we're going to give everybody on the webinar tonight the opportunity to book a 15-minute call with us. And in that 15-minute call, we'll do three things basically. We'll look at your situation, we'll review and evaluate the award offers you've gotten, and then three, give you a sense of whether or not you have a good chance for appeal, a successful appeal. And then optionally, if you want, we can talk with you about our services. We do help parents with that. For parents that don't want to DIY their appeals, we do offer help with that. In fact, we're running a President's Day promo right now, so it's actually a pretty good deal, pretty good ROI. So again, if you have questions, put them in the Q&A, or you can book a free consultation at the end of the webinar tonight. So, all right. Let's how about some quick intros, Korch, and then
Yeah.
we'll kick it off. So I'll start, and then I'll hand it over to you. My name is Jason Slone. I'm one of the planning experts here at College Aid Pro. My background is I've been in higher ed for a long time. Was a university professor. Been a professor since '02. I was a dean for 7 years. So my joke is I'm the former dean that spills the beans for parents. And most importantly, I've been a financial advisor for a long time too. But most importantly, I'm a parent. I'm a parent of three. That's why I got into college planning, to be honest with you. I started in 2019 in college planning because my own kid was starting to look at college and stuff. And now he's a senior. Parents, trust me, I've been in your shoes, and it seems like yesterday I was panicked about how to pay for college, and now I'm celebrating. He's about to graduate and get off the payroll. Woohoo!
Yay. That's
So it
awesome.
goes fast. I know this is stressful for parents, but it does go fast. So try to enjoy the moments as much as you can. I got two other kids. I got a sophomore in college and a ninth grader in high school. So I got one more to go too. So that's enough about me. How about you, Courts? Tell about you.
Yeah, so my name's Michael. I have been with CAP for about 3 years now. I'm in Seattle, so I've got the left coast represented tonight, and the by extension Hawaii. I'm going to claim that as well because that would be
Oh,
really nice. Um, yeah, but work with families all over the country like Jason. And my background, I spent 32 years in software, worked for a bunch of startups in the Seattle area in marketing and uh, yeah, I have three kids. The oldest is 24, and then I have 21-year-old twins, identical twin girls. They're both seniors in college this year. Learned a lot. I found my cap, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago as a consumer and needing help and DIY'd a bunch of things and saved a ton of money. And I thought, dang, if I could help other families with this, that would be a good thing. And so here I am 5, 6 years later, and I'm helping families around the country, and it's been great. So that's my background, and I hope to get to meet some of you later on appointments and following up after this.
yeah. All right, very good. So let's see if I can figure out how to share screen and then we'll jump right in. Again, just another reminder, put questions in your Q&A and if I can get this part right, we'll be in good shape. Oh, hey, it worked.
Yay! Okay, well, here you go. This is something we show every presentation because we're really passionate about this. That the company is all about ending the student debt crisis, which is very significant, as we all know in the country. But it really starts with shopping smarter because this is one of the biggest purchases most families make in their lifetime. If you just have one, let alone two or three, like Jason and I, and maybe some of you out there as well. So that's a big part of tonight is getting a little bit of knowledge because it goes a long ways. All right. You may be familiar, I hope, with our software called MyCap. Hopefully, a bunch of you are using it. You can, if you're not, you should be, especially for the appeals, and we'll talk a little bit about that. The link is actually in the chat. Jason just put it in for us, mycap.collegeaidpro.com. You put in some information about your financial situation, your students' academics, uh, you know, GPA and test scores. You put in the schools and it's going to do a very, very good job of accurately projecting, hey, this is what you should be paying. Most likely will be paying for 1 year of college net cost to your family. And that's something you're going to be comparing against the financial aid award letters that you get from these schools. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through the presentation. All right. Well, as with most things in life, there's good news and there's bad news. The good news is like your student got into one and maybe now by the middle of February, several schools, and that's super exciting, super exciting. But the bad news is like, holy cow, some of those award letters may be coming back and like, wow, okay, I didn't think it was going to be that much money. How are we going to do this? So the solution is there is this process, and the process has been around for a long time. It's now kind of has a light shining on it that schools really have to communicate that what that process is. And for those of you obviously on the presentation learning about appeals, you can find usually a page on the school website about this, but you can appeal the financial aid offer. And obviously, with appeals, you got to know, hey, should we be doing this, whether we do it or not? When would we have to do it? Who's going to be doing it? How are we going to go about doing that? So we'll cover that in the presentation tonight. All right. So whether to appeal or not to appeal. Okay. First, most important thing, and when I talk to families this week that are like eager to do this, they're ready to go. And the first thing we want to do is understand, well, what's the offer that's been made to you so far? And sometimes people are like, well, we haven't gotten our financial aid offer yet. It's like, well, we can't appeal an offer until we've actually received an offer. So that's kind of the first important thing. And that a financial aid award letter is going to have all of this information on the screen on it. That's how you know it's not just the admissions, hey, welcome to the school, and oh, maybe there's a scholarship being awarded as well. It's going to have information about loans. It's going to have information about work study. It's going to be the entire financial package on one letter. Usually shows up in the student's prospective student portal for that school. So grants, this is typically need based. It's based on the financial situation parents or parent income, student income. Grants can come at the federal level, Pell grants can come from the state itself, and can come from the institution, the university as well. The student aid index number, which you may have heard of before. And again, another great reason to use the MyCap when you put your information in, it's going to give you your student aid index value. We're going to compare that and see, is that the number that this was evaluated against? Because that's kind of a first important question. Other things that are going to be on the letter: scholarships. We parents, we love scholarships because the need-based grants are for 1 year. And you got to file every year FAFSA. And for some schools, you got to do FAFSA and CSS profile, those financial aid forms, but you got to do it every year. Otherwise, you don't get the need-based grant. But scholarships, typically, it's a 4-year grant. So as long as the student is maintaining typically like a 3.0 GPA and they're remaining a full-time student, then every year of those 4 years. Now, if they're on the 5-year plan, that might be a problem. So you got to remember, if that student changed majors maybe, or is on, for whatever reason, they're going to do a 5th year, that scholarship probably ends. So work study, those are two other things going to the right side of the screen. Work study is basically a part-time job, an exchange of time for some money. Could be working in the cafeteria or in the library, or helping a particular department head, in a college. Loans. Could be loans, from the federal government, like the federal direct student loan. Could be the Parent Plus loan. Those are versions that will be mentioned on that award letter. So adding all that up, then you kind of have an understanding of what's the free money and what's the not free money of that grant offer. All right, this is a little bit of an eye chart, but what's important, this is a real USC financial aid award letter, and you can see how they break it out into 3 sections. The first you'll always typically see on the financial aid award letter is, here is the estimated cost of attendance, the COA. The cost of attendance is like when you go to the Toyota dealer and you look at the sticker. Like, here's the sticker, that's the kind of top line cost. Okay, and it's going to break out. There's tuition and room and board and books and supplies, so forth. Section B in here is loans and work. So that's helping you pay for school, but it's not free money. Loans you have to pay back with interest. Work, you have to exchange time for that money. You subtract all those things, and then you come up with an estimated remaining cost and how much in aid you're getting and how much left that they're going to expect you to pay. And they break all that out. Okay. Here's another award. You see, they've organized this similar, but a little bit different. They talk about at the very top, cost of attendance. There's direct costs, which you would be billed by the school. So that could be something like tuition, the room and board, fees. I know my daughters are STEM, environmental science majors. So they're going to a ton of biology and chemistry, and there's lab fees, and they get billed all that by the school. The indirect fees are going to be something that can be very variable, like textbooks, transportation. If I'm 2.5 miles from the University of Washington, I'd still probably have $1,000 of transportation costs. Like, well, I'm going to be driving, so that's not going to be a problem. But they break that out. They list in the middle section there, the presidential scholar, fall 11,500, spring, and the total. And down at near the bottom, their loan options. So this student is being given the federal direct student loan of $5,500, and there's the estimated cost. Still going to be, that's kind of a good gotcha there. It's like the real cost is $39,000, not $35,000, because they're taking the $5,500 and saying, oh, that's lowering the cost. It's like, yeah, but you have to pay that back with interest. So it's a little bit of a challenge. Here's Drexel. They do a really nice job here. You can see how they break out gift aid. This is essentially the free money. So there is a dean's scholarship. There is the Drexel grant, which is based on need of the family. This is a pretty significant need-based family, so they're getting a Pell Grant on the federal level and the Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant from the federal government as well. And so there's a total free money of almost $49,000 annually for 1 year. Okay, next screen. And then on page 2, they break out. There's that very simple math that you may have seen on some of our other financial aid webinars we do. Cost of attendance minus gift aid equals that cost, the net cost that you're going to be paying. Here's the work study and loans, and then there's the total, if you will. So that's a good example of a well-designed. Unfortunately, like the stickers on cars that are standardized by the federal government, there is no such equivalent in the world of financial aid in college. And so every school gets to do whatever kind of the heck they want to, and it's kind of crazy, but that's part we have to decipher that and really understand. All right, step 2, should we appeal? How do we figure this out? Well, we already talked at the beginning about using MyCap to help us kind of set our expectations, have at least an accurate projection, and then we compare that against the actual and see. So more on, there we go. So what would be some good candidates for appealing? We always recommend, especially for private colleges, like we just don't accept just the first offer. We're going to be most likely appealing nowadays, and there could be a variety of reasons for that. Special circumstances is kind of an inside baseball term, but these are kind of obvious examples. Someone loses a job. Someone's been, a parent has been ill and not been able to work or has reduced hours. Those are kind of obvious. There's been very significant financial change in the family. There is an opportunity to appeal that. There's some other common situations that we help a ton of families through that have a lot of special circumstances. One is kind of the marital status, being divorced, separated, remarried. Depending on the school, those things get evaluated very differently. Business owners, we work with a ton of business owners. As you know, on tax forms, there's things like depreciation and things that adjust your income amounts. Some of the universities will kind of blow those off and go, depreciation, we don't like, we're going to add that back in again. We don't think that should be, included. Drastically can change the aid award. And so there's a conversation that we want to have there. Another one that we use quite a bit is that private schools can be very responsive to are better financial aid offers from competing colleges. I did this with my own family in the Pacific Northwest. I had a daughter who received a very good offer from one school, got a not so good offer from a different school, but they had a much stronger program. And she's like, okay, I should go to that school. We sent the actual financial aid award letter from the first school to the second school. They looked at it and went, okay, we'll match it. Like that saved us $40,000 over 4 years, just that competitive, because they're in the same geo. They play football against one another. They're trying to take each other's good kiddos from one another, and they're responsive to that. Okay, next side of the slide there. So what are some bad candidates for appeal? We say flagship, state public colleges and universities, they typically have less, their endowment is typically reserved for research and not so much for paying down the price of school for great kiddos. It's not an impossible thing, but just to set expectations, it's typically harder to get additional dollars from them. If there's not been any changes in the financial situation, like, for the 2026 families like you on our webinar today, that we looked, the financial aid forms look back at 2024 tax forms. If that W-2 income has remained fairly consistent, but gosh, we just don't think we're getting very much money, like there's not really that can be really challenging. There has to be some kind of reasoning or some inaccuracy that was done to really kind of help understand. No better offers, if depending on the competitive schools that your student applied to, like the Ivies will typically say, Harvard's going to say, you got a great offer from MIT. That's wonderful. You should probably go to MIT because we don't respond to other competition like that. So it kind of depends.
All right. How about you want to take a break?
Yeah.
We can
So let's,
we can shift roles here. There's good timing because a question just came in that was directed to you, so I'll let you ahead and answer that
all
one.
right.
But
Got it.
okay, so thank you. Great stuff. So again, first you want to determine, whether it makes sense to appeal. So in order to be able to do that, you got to understand your offer. What are they offering you? Are they offering you a bunch of grants and scholarships? Or are they offering you loans and work study, right? So you got to figure out what's the true cost. And now, as Michael said, they'll get a little tricky with you. Like they'll say, "Congratulations, you've been awarded financial aid in the form of a Parent Plus loan," right? And so it's not really free. It's not free money. You're gonna have to pay it back. So you just got to be very careful to truly translate and understand what they're offering you to figure out what the true out-of-pocket net cost is going to be. And then step two is to compare that with what you should have gotten, what you really should have gotten. And the best way to figure that out is to use MyCap. We're actually pretty much more accurate and reliable than a lot of net price calculators on the college website. So use your MyCap account, figure out if you got a good award or a bad award. Okay. And and so now we want to turn towards the timing and the process involved in doing appeal. I actually had a question that came in a bit ago about, when do we do appeals? So let's talk about that. So basic timeline in the college process for seniors is, you submit your application for admission, submit your financial aid forms in the fall. Then you kind of sit and wait for a bit. Then you start hearing admissions acceptances. That typically comes first. And then if the school gives merit offers, typically it's very common to get a scholarship offer with your admissions acceptance. So let me explain why. This is a little goofy because it's common to get a merit offer before you get a financial aid offer. Okay, so let me explain why. Again, always joke I'm the former dean that spills the beans. Let me explain this. So colleges that give scholarships, they use those scholarships to try to incentivize students to go there. They're trying to hook you. They're like, hey, we'll give you some money. Please come here. Please come here. Here's some money. Okay. And so that's why the merit offers come from the admissions office. So the head of the university gives a bucket of money to the admissions team and says, hey, use this money wisely. Try to use it to get as many kids to enroll as possible. Okay. So in terms of timing, it's very common for you to get a merit offer with your admission acceptance, but that's not your full offer. Okay. And so there was a question asked, do we appeal the merit aid offer, once we get it, if we're going to do a merit appeal? And my advice is almost always no, 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 wait, wait, wait. You want to wait and see, well, number one, do you get any better offers from other schools? But also, what's the full award they're going to give you? And that's probably not going to come until later. Okay. That could be, every school is a little different. So some are a little faster than others. But February at the earliest, but more like March and even the first part of April, by then that's when you get the full financial aid award letter from a school. So then you'll know, what did they give us in scholarship? What did they give us in grants? Or what do they offer us, I should say, in scholarship? What do they offer us in grants? And then what do they offer us in work study and loans? Okay, then you will know, per step one, what you've really been offered. That is when we recommend you do appeals. Okay, so generally speaking, there are some exceptions. You might want to, book that free 15 minutes with us so we can give you more advice around this if there's some unique circumstances or something going on, if you're an athlete or whatever, who knows? Okay, but generally speaking, we advise families wait and see what offers you get from all of your colleges. Now you know what you have to work with. You know what schools are offering you, and you can compare apples to apples. And this is a strategy. Okay, you don't have to wait, but it often pays to wait until you get all your offers and do your appeals in basically April, sometimes March, but April. Okay. Now, importantly, that doesn't mean you want to wait until April to prepare your appeals. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. You want to start prepping now. And I'll explain in a minute here why you want to start prepping now, but you probably don't want to submit until April. And then I always say to parents, if you can take it, because I know it's stressful and I know you just want to get it over with, and I know the kid is dying to, commit and put the enrollment deposit down and pick the best dorm and show, all their friends on social media that they're going to Fancy Pants U. I get it. I know everybody wants this, right? But if you have the fortitude to hang in there until the stroke of midnight, the magical stroke of midnight, as I call it, on April 30th, you might get more money. Okay, not always, but it's possible. And I'll explain why here. Again, former dean spills the beans. So every school, it has certain kinds of enrollment targets they're trying to hit. They got to get 3,000 students for their incoming class next year. Well, if it's April 30th and they only have 2,500 students who have committed and put an enrollment deposit down, and they're like, oh my gosh, we're going to be 500 students short of hitting our goal for next year. That'll destroy our operating budgets. Um, they will often start offering more money to the kids that they've admitted but haven't committed. Okay. Again, it doesn't always work, but there's the possibility that if you don't commit and put your enrollment deposit down until May 1st, which is decision day in most cases, you never know. You might get some extra money at the last minute. Might show up an email like, "Hey, if we offered you an extra 1,000, would you take it?" kind of thing. All right. So that's the general timeline. You're going to apply in the fall, here in the winter, appeal in the spring. Okay. And the longer you can wait, usually, with some exceptions, that's the smartest strategy. Okay. All right. So now the question becomes, well, who should do this? We get this question all the time. Should the kid do it? Should the parents do it? Should we hire you to do it? Will you do it for us? Who should do these appeals? So, and the answer to that question is, well, it depends on what type of appeal you're going to do. Okay, so going back to Michael's discussion earlier on about there's two different kinds of gift aid. There's need-based aid, which are typically called grant awards, need-based aid, and then there's merit-based aid. Okay, so if you're going to do depending on the type of appeal you're going to do, it's going to have a different approach. So if you're doing a merit aid appeal, so your kid got offered a scholarship, okay, and you want to appeal to that college to see if they'll give you more scholarships. And recall I said scholarships come from the Office of Admissions because the schools use those to try to get you to enroll. That's who you're going to do the merit aid appeal to, the Office of Admissions. And ideally, your student's going to lead to the charge. Okay. Because remember, your student's the one going to college. And one of the things the college wants to know is this student top notch? Is this student, grade A college material, right? And so if the student can lead the charge on this appeal with the Office of Admission, that's impressive. Okay. If mom and dad are calling the admissions office and begging for extra money, you're sending the message that the kid's not capable of doing it on their own. And that's not going to help your case because the college admissions will be like, why isn't the kid talking to us? What's going on? Why are mom and dad doing this? Okay, so it's much more impressive and impactful if the student leads the charge. I just did this with a client, a parent, a family, Chapman University in California. Well, I coached up the kid. The kid got some confidence, knew what to say, and had a phone call with the admissions team, right? The kid called the admissions team and had a phone call. They invited him to come in for a visit. He said, yeah, I'll be there. When do you want me to be there? So the kid's demonstrating just by leading the charge and being, mature about it. And I have a very good sense that he's going to get extra merit aid. Also, he's got some cool things to share with them that he didn't have in his application. I'll talk about that here in a sec as well. But again, students should lead the charge. That's way more impactful. Okay. Because that student is demonstrating maturity and so forth. Okay. Now, if it's a need-based appeal, everything I just said is the opposite. In this case, a need-based appeal typically it'll be done by not typically it's always done at the Office of Financial Aid. So that's the office that gives out money based on for need-based families, right? And so you're going to do your need-based appeal to the Office of Financial Aid, and the parents should do this one. Okay, the parents should do this one, and that makes sense because in almost all the cases, the need-based appeal is going to be based on special circumstances involving the parents' financials, right? And so that's not something the kid would do because they're like the kid would have to know mom and dad's business basically. And so the college understands that no, this mom and dad's paying the bill, mom and dad's financials, mom and dad are going to do this. So the parent is going to lead the need-based appeal and do that to the Office of Financial Aid. Now, can you do both? Yes, absolutely, but potentially. Okay. Meaning, if you get a merit aid and from a schools, and you have need-based and merit-based offers from schools, yes, you can do those both. And if your student did get into a school and they got a merit aid and a need-based offer, a little bit of both, which is common, um, generally I say you should do both. And let me explain why. Again, the dean spills the beans here. So typically, the Office of Financial Aid and the Office of Admissions have two different buckets of money. Okay, they got two different buckets of money. The admissions office uses their bucket of money for scholarships. Financial aid uses their bucket of money for grants. Well, if you as a family, you appeal, the student goes to the office and says, I need more money to be able to come here. If you could give me more scholarship, it'd be great. And you go to the Office of Financial Aid and you say, we really can't afford this. Can you help us and work with us? Sometimes they will talk to each other. The admissions office will call the financial aid office and say, "Hey, we're out of money up here. Do y'all have any money left? Please, 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 we'd love to get this kid to enroll. He's a great kid. Could you help them?" So it gives the universities more flexibility and options to meet the family's need if you have both. Now, some cases you can't do both, right? There are schools that are meets need only. They don't do any merit scholarships. All the Ivy Leagues, for example. Well, you're not going to do a merit aid. So the only type of appeal you'd be able to do at, say, the Ivies or any meets need only school would be a need-based appeal. You're not going to be able to do merit-based appeal. So, but potentially you could do both if the school offered you both. Okay. So question becomes okay, should we? Yes. It's starting to be March or April. Who's going to lead it? Now we're down to, well, how we do this. All right. So let's talk a little bit about that. So I mentioned earlier, even though you're going to submit in April generally, maybe late March, but generally you want to wait till you get all of your offers so you know. But you should really start preparing now. Okay, you really should start preparing now. And that's why we're offering the free consultation to meet with us starting now, because even if you're not going to submit until April, you don't want to wait until April to get ready. Okay, because here's why. When you do an appeal, what you're going to be doing is telling your story and backing it up with documentation. All right. So let's just say it's a need-based appeal. So you're going to do a need-based appeal. Heaven forbid something has changed. A parent has lost a job, or you had a one-time medical event, or now you have ongoing medical expenses from an illness, or you're caring for an aging parent, or something major has changed, right? You're going to want to have time to get your story together, including very specific numbers. That's usually ideal, right? And so you're going to want to know how much the schools are going to want to know. Okay, you're caring for an aging parent. How much have you spent on this parent? Okay, you've had a loss in income. Give us proof that the dad's no longer working, or whatever story you're going to tell. All right, and your appeal, you're going to have as specific as possible numbers and documentation. So the reason why you don't want to wait till April to start preparing your appeal is because that can take some time. You might have to go do some digging. You might have to make some requests from an old employer. You might have to hunt down some invoices from a hospital or whatever. And just trust us on this. The sooner you start, the less stressful it will be for you, because if you can get everything ready, you got your letter written, you got your documentation ready to go, you get all those financial aid award letters, now you can upload them. It's a lot less stressful than if you wait till April and you're like, oh my gosh, we got a terrible offer. We've got to do an appeal. Oh my gosh. Now I've got, you're busy and you got kids and things are going on and suddenly you don't have the time, and parents just get very, very, very stressed. Okay. So you are going to have to provide documentation for sure. Just be prepared to do that. So any claim you make, you're going to want to provide some documentation. And when it comes to doing appeals, it's okay to do appeals. You can be persistent. A lot of parents are kind of scared about this, like, well, we don't want to bug them. We don't want to offend them. We don't want, they're going to pull the admissions offer from the kid or something like that. And that's just not the case. Of course, you're going to want to do this professionally, and politely. You're not going to be, going in there like hard-nosed negotiator to get the price down. But if you're professional, you're polite, you can be persistent and it comes off in a positive way. So you're going to say, basically, the tone is going to be, my kid really wants to go there. It's his dream school, her dream school. We really want to be able to send her there. However, we can't afford this. So can you help us? Can you work with us? Can we work together on this to make it happen? Because we really, really, really want to make this happen. That demonstrates interest. Okay. And so so that's seen as a positive thing is you're trying to figure out how to make it happen. So being persistent is good. Again, we've talked about the parent leads the charge for the need based. Um, there may be you want to use expenses as part of the challenge, right? Like, hey, we've got these other expenses, we've got the stuff going on, et cetera. Okay, sometimes you want to make a specific ask, right? Can you match or beat the scholarship from this other school? Or, hey, we had $50,000, earmarked. We had $60,000 earmarked for college. It was $15,000 a year, but we had to use it for this emergency thing that happened. And so could you, give us $15,000 aid, blah, 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 something like that. Okay. So anyway, you're going to get all your stuff ready, get your story ready, get your documentation ready, get your letters ready, get everything ready in February and March to submit in April. So now, what are some good, reasons for a merit-based appeal? What are some valid merit-based appeal? What is the process? That kind of thing. The strategy is going to be you're going to go Office of Admissions. We talked about that, and just expect that the school is going to follow an internal process that's unique to each school. It could be a committee or something like that, but they're going to tell you what they'll need. Okay, and so you got to follow that process that they have. If your student has any new or strengthened information, that can matter a lot. Okay. So I have a client, a family I'm working with, helping, um, just got a fantastic award. And they're like, is this something we could, use in a merit appeal? I'm like, yes, absolutely. We're telling them, we are definitely going to tell them about this fantastic award your daughter just got. I mean, it was just outstanding, right? And again, providing supporting documentation, including if you have a better offer from another school, show them. Don't just tell them. I went to the College of Worcester as an undergrad, small liberal arts college in Ohio. They compete with like Denison and Kenyon College in Oberlin for students. If you want to go to Worcester and Denison gives you a better scholarship, show them that documentation. Don't just tell them. Okay. Now, when it comes to need-based appeals, again, financial aid office, every school's got its own process. Make sure you follow it. Because if you don't follow it, this gives them an easy way to deny your appeal. Like, oh, please fill out this form. Please attach this documentation. Upload it to this portal using this login code or whatever. If you don't do that, they're like, sorry, we can't look at your appeal because you didn't follow the rules. Okay, so don't give them that opportunity to deny your appeal just because you forgot some, link or something that they wanted you to use. All right. And here's where you want to focus on information typically not captured on the financial aid forms. If you're a parent of a senior, like the FAFSA and the CSS profile, they ask a bunch of questions, but most of the questions are just numbers, just math. They use their formula to generate your SAI, and then they give you, a need-based offer based on your SAI, and woo, that's it, right? Well, here's your opportunity to explain things that are not captured on the financial aid forms. Okay. Hopefully you didn't give away too much on the CSS profile. Hopefully you did one of our webinars back in the fall before you filed the CSS profile and didn't make any mistakes by oversharing. But these are the kinds of things you got an aging parent, medical things, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So you don't want to just reiterate what you put on the FAFSA. You can't be like, if you put on the FAFSA, we have $10,000 in the bank. You can't go, hey, can you give us more money because I only have $10,000 in the bank? They're going to go, yeah, we know you have $10,000 in the bank. You put it on the FAFSA kind of thing. All right. And of course, you want to highlight any changes to the financial picture, change in income. Assets are depleted because you had an emergency. I live in Savannah, Georgia. We had a hurricane. The branch fell down, went through my roof. Insurance won't cover it. We're getting mold in the attic, so I had to deplete the college savings fund so we didn't die of mold poisoning. Whatever, I'm making up a story, but you want to think anything that has impacted your financial picture that negatively impacts your ability to pay the expected family contribution. Okay. And then I always say, look, this is the one time in your life when you want to look as poor as possible. Okay. And so I tell families, you should tell the saddest, sobbest story that you can tell in this appeal. Okay. Because you want to pull on the heartstrings of the financial aid office. You want them to feel your pain, right? Because if they start to sort of feel like, wow, this family's really gone through some stuff, they might be more charitable. Okay. So, Swallow your pride for the purposes of getting potentially more aid, and really tell them all the stuff that you're really struggling with. Okay, this is the one time in your life where it really pays to look poor. So, okay, be prepared to provide supporting documents. We've mentioned that several times. You got to show them, don't just tell them. This is a actual case, an appeal that we've been working on. Our teams have been working on with the family, and the family said, "Oh my gosh, look at what they're asking me to provide now." We did an appeal, and the college is like, "Okay, by the way, we're going to put this college on our wall of shame at MyCap because there's some schools out there just real jerks." And gatekeeping kind of stuff, We won't call any of them out. NYU. Um, Anyway, this is a real life case. They said didn't appeal. The college is like, okay, we'll consider your appeal, but you need to do a cash flow worksheet from the last 2 years. Like monthly things like how much do you spend on groceries every month? How much do you spend on haircuts? How much do you spend on alcohol? How much do you spend on gasoline? I mean, I'm not even kidding. The budget worksheet they gave was absolutely insane. Okay, so we're just telling you this, to be prepared that it can be a lot of work. Now, it pays off. It can pay off. It's a ton of money on the line, so it's worth it, but just be prepared. Tax returns. This is going to be a big one. If you haven't filed your tax returns yet for 2025 and you're planning to do an appeal, you might want to do that as quickly as possible because it's possible, likely, that the college will say, yeah, we need to see your 25 tax returns. And if you're like, well, I don't have them, they're like, okay, sorry, nothing we can do. That's a risk. So you want to do that. So, mortgage statements, account balances, a written statement from the grandparents. Who knows what they're going to ask for. You're going to have to be prepared to provide it. Okay. Okay. So just a couple of now that was I hope didn't mean to scare you there. I just meant to like give you some awareness of what you're looking at, okay, potentially. Now, is it worth it? Absolutely. It is worth doing appeals in most cases. Some cases it's life-changing money. So I'll just give you a couple of cases from our team that we've done for families, and you can see the impact. So this is Occidental College. Before the appeal, this family had a ton of home equity. We see this a lot. If you live in California or Austin or Seattle or Boston or Chicago, whatever, and home prices have just absolutely skyrocketed over the last 4 years, well, that's hurting families from a financial aid perspective at schools that consider home equity. So this family had a ton of home equity. Um, so what did they get offered? Well, they got offered 12 grand in scholarships and 21 grand in a grant. Well, that's 34 grand in gift aid. Not bad, except for that still leaves a huge estimated cost of attendance, right? $81,000. So this family's, 50 grand or whatever. So we did an appeal and not to get into the details, but basically we were able to get the home equity removed from consideration. And there's all kinds of details about how we did that. But and then they went back, they got 34 before the gift aid. Oxy, honored the $12,000 scholarship, but look at this, raised the grant to almost $50,000. Okay, so after the appeal, the gift aid went to 62, an additional increase of 20, basically 28K per year. It's over $100,000 in savings off the cost of college from this family. Now, here's a case from BU, Boston University. What do they cost? 90 grand, or approaching 100 now. This year, I think, crazy. What they offered to this family? They offered them $3,500 in loans. Okay, that was it. Full pay, 90 grand. So we did an appeal, and long story short, look at this, what they came back and offered. They offered a need-based scholarship, 28 grand, 2,800. And then look at the second thing they offered, a Boston University appeal fund of almost 16 grand. Remember I said before, the former dean of spills the beans, a lot of these colleges have buckets of money that they hold back for appeals. There's money there for appeals at a lot of these colleges, and BU spilled the beans on themselves. They're telling people, okay, you caught us. Yeah, we'll give you an extra 16 grand on appeal right out of our appeal funds. That's what that fund is there for. Okay. So afterwards, gift aid of 40 for 700. That's 180, roughly $180,000 in savings off the cost of college through the appeal process. Okay. So fantastic outcome there at BU. Last case study here, and then we're pretty much at the end of the time here. Leave some time maybe to answer some questions, and if we can. But one last one. This was my favorite one to share with families. This was my family. Uh, this kid, as we say in the South, bless his heart. He was just, his heart was set on Syracuse University, right? Had to go to Syracuse, had to go to Syracuse. I don't know how these kids come up with dream schools like this where they like lock in on one school and I got to go there. My life's over. Oh my gosh. But it happens all the time. So this kid locked in. Oh my God, I got to go Syracuse. My life's over if I don't go Syracuse. So mom and dad are like, I said, Mom, Dad, I don't know. It's going to be expensive. I'll do my best to try to get it down. And they're like, well, let's just see what they offer. I said, okay. So got in. Good news, got in Syracuse. Bad news, zero aid. The family didn't qualify for any need-based aid. Zero merit aid. So, Syracuse is 90 some grand a year or whatever, right? And the parents were like, I cannot believe we got nothing. This kid was a good student. I was like, yeah, I know schools do this. I said, well, what are you gonna do? Take a shot at appeal. Let's do this. Let's do the appeal. And they said, okay, we're gonna do an appeal. So we did an appeal. Like, look, this kid's got good academics. Look at his leadership stuff. He's got extracurricular stuff. He's got community service. And I had encouraged them, do some more stuff, keep building the resume. Don't get senioritis. So the kid kept doing stuff and building out his resume. And um, so we appealed. And Syracuse said, how about 5 grand a year? You know, that's 20 grand, over 4 years, that's 20 grand. All right. I said, told the family, like, no, appeal a second time, appeal the appeal. So appealed a second time, and Syracuse said, all right, how about 10 grand? Right. That's 40 grand in savings. I mean, that's not insignificant. That's a good amount of money. And, the parents, they had that heart to heart, and they said, we just can't do it. I said, well, let's try one more time. And this time we're going to leverage a competitive offer. We kind of had some strategy, right? We knew this was kind of coming. And, we could see from Mike in my cap in their MyCap account how much the kid did qualify for, right? So we had that part of the appeal too. We didn't mention MyCap, but we leveraged a competitive offer. In this case, it was from JMU, and we told Syracuse, right down to the wire. We've waited, we've waited. We have to make this difficult decision. We got to go to JMU. We can't afford Syracuse. Syracuse said, hold on, and offered $60,000 a year, $240,000 of additional merit aid over 4 years from Syracuse in this case. Okay. They went from 0 to 5K to 10K to 60K. Now, that's an unusually high amount. Okay. That's the highest I've ever seen in my career. And with my clients, I've seen higher in some other guys and gals on the team. But anyway, talk about life-changing money. It's $250,000. And the good news is the family they about fell out of their chair. The mom was in tears with joy. The kid is there and thriving now and happy and loving it. And he's at his dream school. And mom and dad aren't, don't have to have a third job to pay for it. So, again, not to say that every single appeal case is going to go this well, but it's really the power of appeals you got to try. So, all right. So this is some of our wins last year. Just a snapshot. I think we got over 5 million was the total when you count it over 4 years. Some are bigger than others, of course. And so, but even though like some of these little ones, Loyola Marymount, a couple grand, but when you multiply it times four, $2,000 in aid or even $1,000, well, that's $4,000 of savings. I'll take $4,000. Put that in my pocket. I like to go boating, so that would cover my fuel for at least one weekend. And so, it's really important to appeal. I'm not saying you're going to get 60K extra like the Syracuse case, but every little bit helps. And so, if you're thinking should we or should we not, in most cases we say yeah, give it a shot. All right. And then lastly, the other big fear I often hear from parents is, well, I'm a little nervous about this because I don't want, to make them mad and they're going to pull the admissions offer. Appealing will not hurt your admission offer. Okay. They're not going to say, no, you can't come here now. It's just another step in the process. Once you've been offered admission, your kid's admitted. Now you're just trying to get to the price through the process. Okay. So don't be afraid of it. Okay. So that was a lot. Hopefully that was helpful. It looks like we got some good questions going in the Q&A there. So that was good. And so, if you would like to, to get some help, you can meet with us. And so we're going to offer here for you the opportunity to book a free appeals analysis meeting. Basically, like if you're not sure if, how, who, all those kind of things, it's a free meeting. If you schedule by midnight, you want to click on that QR code there. We can also drop the link in the chat. I can do that here in a sec, or you can do it, Michael. I don't know if you have
Yeah,
access.
got it. Yeah.
Okay, great, perfect. So, it's free, but we just ask you to schedule it tonight because we are so busy. Our calendars get full, and if you don't schedule tonight, we're off to the next webinar. There's another webinar going on. Those parents are gonna, our calendars just fill up quickly. And when you get into March and April, we just don't have a lot of openings to help. So to try to incentivize you to get on the calendar, do it tonight, free consultation. And what we'll do, it'll be 15 minutes or so. We can go over a little bit longer if needed sometimes, depending. We'll review your situation. What's going on? Tell us, oh, we lost a job, or we had a one-time retirement distribution, or what, blah, 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 whatever. Okay. Well, what did they offer you? Okay, they offered us this. And then we'll be able to look at it, the whole situation, and give you advice like, yeah, look, you definitely should appeal. And you should do a mayor appeal. You should do an EBS appeal, whatever. We're going to give advice on what, whether or not you should appeal and what kind and all that kind of good stuff. All right. And we'll be honest with you. I'm always honest with families I meet with. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but sometimes I have to be like when you if you get on my calendar and you say, look, we got no money from Penn State, we want to do an appeal, I'm gonna have to give you the bad news and say, I'm sorry, you can appeal, but you're gonna get zero because Penn State doesn't give anybody anything. Okay, so I'll tell you that, but then you'll know, right? And then you'll have some clarity, and that's comforting in some kind of weird way. But if you do have a good opportunity for appeal, we'll tell you like, yeah, you should definitely be appealed, and we'll do our best to analyze that for you. Okay, so we'll review situation, look at the offers, and advise you what to do. If then this is completely optional, this is not a sales meeting or anything like that. If you want to use our services, you want to hire us to help, we're happy to share what we do and what's involved, how much it costs, what you get, and all that kind of stuff too. But that part of it's optional. So, all right, that what do we do? Oh, we went a little bit longer than 45 minutes, but hopefully it was worth it. A little bit of extra, but. Oh, all right. So it looks like we got maybe a few minutes left here to take some maybe live questions. This is your chance to maybe stump the chump if anybody has any questions. Let us have it here. Oh, we're all caught up on questions.
Let's
Dub,
see. You see that one, Jason? State universities generally give merit scholarships in an appeal process. Oh, I think out of state. Is that what OOS
yeah,
means? Yeah, out of state.
sometimes. Yep, it all depends on the student and the schools. Penn State won't.
University of Washington typically won't either.
Yeah, but I'm in the South. A lot of SEC schools will. So it depends on the schools and it depends on your kid, right?
Yeah.
There's GPA and test scores and all that kind of stuff too. So yeah, good question.
I'll occasionally see, even in the state of Washington, here are two big state schools of Washington State University over in Eastern Washington and the University of Washington in Seattle. They're very competitive with one another. And I've seen some kind of manufactured scholarship, like special housing dorm discount
Yep.
stuff that they kind of manufacture at the moment to try to get that kiddo to come.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I've seen that too. A cafe, a client, family I worked with 2 years ago, Baylor gave them a meal plan. So
Wow,
that
interesting.
was kind of interesting, right?
Yeah.
I met with a family today. I will mention another one that's been pretty good is Miami University in Ohio.
Oh, okay.
It's one of the original Ivies or something. I forget what they call themselves, but they do a pretty good job of merit scholarships so it all depends. It all depends. Yeah, meet with us if you have questions about that. We'd be happy to take a deeper dive for you. How do we apply for merit scholarships, especially in North Carolina? There's none. So merit scholarships will come from the schools themselves, institutional merit scholarships, and not all schools offer them. Some do, some don't. So it all depends on the schools that your student is applying to. And then, of course, there are private outside merit scholarships as well. we didn't talk a lot about those tonight because this was all focused on appeals, but if your kid is the type of kid who's willing to spend the time to apply for private scholarships, you can get lots and lots and lots of money with outside private scholarships too. We should do a webinar on that, shouldn't we? That'd be a good one. Yeah, East Carolina, Jody. Yeah, we've worked with East Carolina. I just don't know off the top of my head what kind of merit scholarships they offer, but my cap will tell you. All right. You want to take one or two, Michael? Are you
Yeah.
you typing them or?
Uh, yeah, there was one question asked about state schools versus private school merit awards. Do you look at this as a percentage, not just dollar to dollar? Um, and the answer is yes. I've seen it done where, when a cost between two competitive schools is somewhat significant and you get a merit award of X amount, it may not sound a lot, but maybe it's a significant amount of the cost of tuition from a percentage perspective. And that can certainly be, a point that you can try to use in your description of, an appeal opportunity of a competitive offer and see if they respond. I don't know if don't know that I would call that a very strong appeal kind of reason. And maybe there are other things that are playing a role, but it is possible. Yes. Let's see. College of Charleston in South Carolina. Any experience with that?
We were just there.
There you go.
Just did a visit to College of Charleston
Oh,
uh, this past week. Yeah, they do a decent job. Again, it all depends on your student and things like that, but they do a decent job. It depends, lots of factors, all depends. You might want to meet with us to take a deeper dive. Texas A&M at Galveston. Yep, I have a client. This kid just committed to A&M actually. And again, these kinds of like, it's hard for us to give like, not we're not sidestepping these questions. It's really difficult to give you a good assessment, just on minimal information. That's why we offer the consultation offer, because these kinds of questions we would dig into. Okay, well, what's going on in your situation? What's your kids tested? The more we know, the better the assessment we can give you with regard to the, the likelihood of a successful appeal. Mm. All right, maybe one time, we got maybe a time for one more.
yeah. Can I appeal even after getting full tuition offer? Interesting. Um, well, there certainly are other expenses beyond tuition, room and board and books and such. And, depending upon the school, you definitely would want to have a very clear understanding of kind of the business model of the school, and do they offer some schools, even big schools, if you call that the presidential scholarship or, whatever the term would be, there may be only two, there may be 20,000 at the school, but that's a very, very unique award potentially at that university. So you just want to do some research and figure out like what's the probability or possibility of that happening. And I'll say to kind of support, there's folks asking about particular schools, which is awesome. And the answer is, I think 99% of the time, yes, especially the ones that I'm seeing mentioned here that we certainly have worked with families in getting a better awards there. Another great thing about the MyCap software we talked about is that the software has all the scholarships at all the schools. And so part of the projection engine, when you have all your details in the MyCap, it will actually tell you like, hey, based on the GPA of your student and their test score, like they're most likely going to get this particular scholarship. So it's not a guarantee, but considering most of the net price calculators that you could go to the school website and try for free, most of them don't even offer any details about scholarship. They don't ask for your GPA. So you're missing out completely. You have no expectation of whether it's a yes or no. And at least in our software, you can tell and get a very strong indicator. And that can kind of help with I work with a bunch of families that are like, gosh, my kid was supposed to get this $20,000 scholarship and they gave him $5,000. It's like, well, it looks like we should be having a conversation. And that sounds like an opportunity there. Let's look further into that. So that might be an interesting option for you.
Yeah. Yeah, and last thing I'll say, excuse me, is when you're asking about, any experience with any of these schools, we have about almost, I think, 25 financial aid pros on our team, and we do thousands, work with thousands of families every year. And so we've got experience with pretty much all of them. Okay, at some point or another, we've been around since 2017. So the answer to all these questions is yes. Do we have success? Well, that has a lot to do with what's going on with the situation of the schools and the student and the family and all that kind of stuff too. So, but we definitely work with all the schools in the country. So hopefully this was helpful. Michael, as always, it's fun to do webinars with you, but I just encourage everybody to take advantage of that free consultation and get on our calendars. And even if you're still waiting on some awards, talk to us now because we'll give you a good sense of, what to expect and if you should be, prepping for an appeal.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jason. It was great to see you. Thanks everyone for coming and spending some time with us. Have a wonderful evening.